welcome to Be With Anna Brand. This is Anna Brand. I'm Jenny Smith. I'm the guest on today's show, and we're going to talk about all things networking. Woo! The little lobster, Lorenzo.
I love the lobster.
One of the sessions I do on confidence is about lobster brain activity. It's a whole thing. Anyway,
I've seen something that you'd wrote. Something.
Did I write something about
something
lobsters?
That you had written had a little lobster next to it, and I was like, and what is the lobster?
What's the lobster? This is the lobster. So lobsters, when they fight, the winner of the fight, its brain releases serotonin, which is one of the human happy hormones, and it makes the lobster like stand up taller, so that other lobsters know that he's gangster and you've not to mess with him.
Gangster lobster.
Yeah, exactly. And in humans, we get serotonin. It's basically chemical confidence.
Yeah.
So you can get. Your brain releases serotonin when you eat healthily, when you exercise, but also when you reflect on past achievements. In the present, you get a hit of serotonin.
Yeah.
So we do like a workshopy thing around like making a lobster list with all your like achievements, and then when you need a boost, you can look at your list and you get serotonin now from stuff you did previous.
So if you're going to go into something that's going to make you feel like nervous, would you be like, right,
be
gangster,
sit in the car,
where's my gangster lobster mode?
Yeah, and get your little, mine's in my phone as like a little note list with a little lobster, and it's like all the stuff that I've done that's made me feel proud of myself.
Lobster.
And then you can have a little boost.
I'm making a lobster list.
But you've got to make a lobster list. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Make
Make a lobster
Do
list.
lobster list.
Lobster list. Done, right.
There you go.
I feel like Be More Gruffalo is going to be replaced.
I know, totally Be More Lobster.
Be More Gangster Lobster.
Jordan Peterson, do you know? Have you heard of him? He's an author and a TED talker and all kinds of stuff. Very opinionated. He's come to the Northeast actually, American guy. Anyway, he's got a book called 12 Rules for a Chaos-Free Life. And the first rule is about the lobster brain activity and how you should stand up tall like a lobster. So people who win and succeed get a lot of serotonin. So you stand up taller and carry yourself differently. And in his book, he says, basically carry yourself that way and the world sees you as a winner.
Absolutely.
But with the lobster list, you can actually give yourself a boost of it if you want.
I've started now. That means that it's like important and going to happen.
Yeah. I do that. I've got a little doodle code. Yeah.
Do you know what it is? I love that. I didn't realise lobsters were so like
lobsters are proper
multi-layered.
Well, the first thing that they do is look at each other, and by the way it's stood, it can tell whether or not you can take them out of a fight. The next step is that they squirt hormones at each other, and they can read each other's hormone profiles to decipher whether or not he thinks he can win. Because when they do fight, they proper fight to the death.
I've never seen a lobster fight. What is all this?
Lobsters, yeah.
There's so much lobster knowledge that I didn't know about.
You would, the way they're built, you would think.
You guys as well. I really want to turn the camera. How do they fight? Like, do they just
I don't
fight
know
with
if I've
these,
ever
or
watched
they're
a
like
video.
full on?
Not in my head, because I don't know what it's like in real life. In my head, they proper go for each other, rip each other's arms and that off.
Rear up on there.
I don't know.
I feel like we need to
mantis. I've got that in my head now. I feel like we might need to Google it.
Or do they have to be in the water to fight so that they can?
In my head, it was in the water, but I don't know. They might be on land.
But then they couldn't get as
but
much
it's hard
speed in the water. Yeah.
So many questions.
I'm going to have to find this out.
About the lobsters. I'm going to Google it. It's going to be my YouTube history.
Tell me about, first of all, Netno.
Okay, yes. Let's get to it. Netno. Yeah. The business.
Do you
want to know where it came from? The history of it? Okay. So, Netno started accidentally on purpose 5 years ago now. I had always been involved in networking. Fell into it by accident 20 years ago in Liverpool. scared the bejesus out of me. Then fell in love with it, actually, after I spoke to another human. And then I invented a job where I went networking full time.
I love that you invented a job.
I did. It was class. So I didn't pay for food or wine for like a year and just used to go to like 5 or 6 events every day. Like, it was class. And the more events that you go to, the more people invite you to events. So you get access to a lot of different things. Anywho, so I did that, ran a network in Cumbria.
How did that go?
It was good. It was rough. It was hard. I was a lot younger, didn't know as much, obviously. But also, back then, this was like 10, 15 years ago now, people networked. They utilised the networks that they had, but they didn't go to networking events in order to network, if that makes sense. So at that point, there was very few events happening, so it wasn't part of like business culture.
Yeah.
So there was quite a bit of trying to share the education around the value that comes from going to networking events, as well as utilising your existing networks. So that was a slog, but built it up about 5 years. And by the end, we had it was like a membership network, so it was a bit different, that one. And had like an awards and stuff. And
well, that's good. Brilliant if you managed to get, I mean, if that was your first and you've managed to get it to that point.
Yeah, it was. It was just, I think I learned a lot from that business. Looking back, you always go, oh, what was I doing?
Yeah.
But at the time, I did the best I could with the resources and the knowledge that I had, to be fair. And I got a lot from it. And that, as most people careers do, you find that one thing opens the door to the next thing, which opens the door. And had you not done that, you wouldn't have been able to do the next.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. And when I met my husband, in my glove, as you do, classic love story. I was on a girls' holiday. He was on a boys' holiday.
Oh, so
staying in the same hotel.
So in theory, you kind of met him at your worst.
Oh, absolutely. Bless him. Yeah, I did. Absolutely. What a state. But we were just friends to begin with, to be fair. But he lived over in the northeast, and then I ended up moving over to the northeast and stalked the founder of the Muscle Club, which is a network over here.
Yeah.
Till he gave me a job, which he did. So I was the MD there for about 3 years, which allowed me to really get to know the northeast business community, which was great. Then took a step back from running networks, because it's all consuming. Like, it's a lot being that in the middle of a network, looking after all the different people and events, and so I ended up delivering business support for a few years, which I loved. But then when I had my little girl on maternity leave, as you know, most of us do, again, midlife / identity crisis, becoming a mum, decided to quit that job. Even though I did really love it, I quit that job to do what I loved and what I wanted to do, which was help people network. So I wanted to take everything I'd learned for the last 15 years at that point and help more people get more from networking, whether that was like teaching networking skills. I'm really passionate about creating networking strategies and helping people really see networks for the value that they are, not just you just go for a coffee and a chat.
Yes.
So really be strategic with their approach. So I came up with the idea when Juno was, I think, 10 weeks old. Came up with the idea, built a little Wix website, quit my job, and then my husband took over parental leave, because you can switch it.
Did he?
Yeah. I was like, right, Dave, I'm starting a business. And he's like, all right, bless him, he's used to me now. He's like, all right, what you doing? And so I was like, we're going to help people network, this is the crack, blah, blah, blah. And to be fair, once you calculate the cost of full-time childcare for what I would have earned doing a full-time job, it was pointless. It was literally pointless. So I was like, if I can just earn $1,000 a month, that's way better than working full-time. If I can earn $1,000 a month, working a day and put her in childcare or whatever, we're financially better off. So it felt like a low risk. However, little did I know, the literal day Dave took over parental was when lockdown happened.
Oh, was it?
And the schools shut that first week when it really got serious. Yeah. And everyone was in lockdown. I remember having a call with the boss that I'd quit the job from, and he was like, what are you going to do? Because all the paperwork was done. Like, I had my whatever you get, P45, P60. What do you get when you leave a job? I don't know. P something. Paperwork.
I don't know, what, P60, I think?
Maybe. Well, whatever, yeah. So all that, I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
Dave was on parental leave. His job was trying to get him to go back, but he was already... Anyway, so that was chaos.
So what did you do?
Just pulled up my big girl pants, changed the business plan.
Yeah.
Because the original plan was to teach people networking skills and help them. And I was going to go out to networking events and say, oh, look, I can help you if you hate these events, which a lot of people do. If you hate these events, I can help, blah, blah. Obviously, all of that went out the window. Originally, when it was like, oh, we're on lockdown for 2 weeks, I thought I'll use this 2 weeks to build all my slides for my training and, you know, build the programs I want to teach, and those 2 weeks will be lovely and no one else is doing anything, so I'm not missing out on anything. And then that 2 weeks turned into months, turned into, you know. So I changed the business model and I took what I'd learned delivering business support, knowing that the business support organizations, they still had to spend money, they still had to support businesses, they still had to, you know, they had deadlines to hit. So I changed my model and sold to them. So they paid me to help businesses network through lockdown, basically.
Right.
So that allowed me to help people for free. Well, to them it was free. It allowed me to work remotely. So I did online training, online workshops, coaching, strategy creation, one-to-ones. And it allowed me to build my portfolio whilst getting paid, but still delivering stuff for free.
Perfect.
So that's how it began.
Jammy
Nearly 5 years ago. I know. Proper lucky bastard, like, honestly styled it out. So yeah, and to be fair, business support agencies are still one of my biggest client groups. Amazing. You know, I still deliver a lot of, it allows me to work with smaller businesses or micro businesses who wouldn't necessarily invest their own money in something, but it really gives them a lot of value. So I do a lot of workshops on accelerator programs all over the country, and for the BIPC, that I'm one of the experts and residents and all that kind of stuff. So it's still, it's not something that I probably would have approached had it not been for obviously the way things were at that time, but it's worked out like a really good source for me.
Have you always been like confident around people? What were you like when you were younger?
I was always, I think when I was like secondary school, like a lot of people, big culture shock. I'd gone from a really small village in Cumbria school to like a school where people like swore and hit each other and that. And I was like, whoa, I wasn't prepared for this in my little village. So one of my ways of coping was to become the funny one. Yeah, I'm a bit of a Chandler Bing. Or like, just like a bit of banter. Yeah. So being like a funnier, that was my kind of coping mechanism to keep myself safe through secondary school. But I was in a lot of groups. I was quite sporty, so I was a competitive swimmer. And then at school, I was on the netball team and the hockey team. But I was in like the top sets in terms of like classes. So I was friends with lots of different people, which I think really helped as well.
I can picture the person you were in school, and that one that was friends with everyone.
I tried to, I remember, so I've got a bigger sister. And I remember when I started secondary school, her friend, she will not remember this at all, Sarah McDermott, said to me, just be friends with everyone. Like, don't make any enemies. And you know when something sticks with you?
Yes.
And it really did. And I was like, right, okay. So just be nice to everyone. And that was kind of to get through. And that really helped. And I think being part of diverse groups that, you know, in terms of interests and stuff, that helped. And then I took a gap year when I was 18, another fun story. Ended up living in Fiji with nuns.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
With nuns?
With nuns. It wasn't planned.
How long were you there for?
About 6 months. I was weird. I was only 18.
Were you sort of
It was a gap. It was like a voluntary. So like there was this program called GAP. And it was for 18-year-olds, you know, like after A-levels, before uni. I didn't know what I wanted to do at uni. And my mum's friend, typical like through networks, my mum's friend's kid had gone and done it through this charity. So I was like, oh, I'll do that. Why not? As you do. And then I remember it had a map in the booklet. And it was like, right, if I'm going to go away, I might as well go as far as I possibly can. And obviously Fiji's as far as you can get. And we did like you get placed in a school. So we did like a 10-day training course in London of like teacher training, like how to teach classes and stuff. And then it just so happened the school I got placed in was a special school, so all the kids were deaf. So that training was pointless. Because I didn't know at the time. Got there, and all the deaf kids from across Fiji would come to stay. There was only this one special school, so they'd come and live with the nuns while they went to school, and then go back to their villages, when school was out. So we were living with the nuns and the kids. And
So what did you have to do? Were you supposed to be teaching?
I ended up. They were so in Fiji. Like if anyone's ever been to Fiji, it's the most laid back, like Pacific time. Like they'll always be like, everything runs on Fiji time. So it's very like the teachers would just show up at lunch, and it was very relaxed. It's not like over here. So obviously living with the kids and then going to the school with the kids. We learnt sign language. There was me and another girl got placed there. We learnt sign language very quickly.
Wow.
And they use Australian sign over there. So it's similar to British. I've since done a British level 1 sign language course. I think it's a good thing to learn because then, deaf people can't learn to speak to us.
I didn't realise there would be a British and
It's different, yeah.
Am I being a bit thick?
No, everyone, no. It's totally, that's a normal response.
What's the difference?
Well, British and Australian have got the same alphabet. Americans use one hand to do the alphabet, so it's like I don't know the letters.
Wouldn't it just be easier if it was just a...
Well, you could say that about any
universal
language. Yeah, it would. But you've got, when I did the British Sign Language course, our teacher was deaf, and he was talking about how you've got accents in sign language.
Really?
So regionally, even in England, if you go different regions, they'll use slightly different signs for different things.
Can you do Geordie, do you think, in a sign language?
They'll have their own, but I don't know what it would be like. I don't know what it would be like. But yeah, how they talk, like how they sign, slightly different.
That is bizarre.
Yeah.
Can you remember any of it now?
Yeah. I was randomly I was at A&E, everything was fine. I'd had a tooth extraction like a month ago and it was awful and I thought I was going to die. So I went to A&E, well I rang 111, they're like, go to A&E. So I was sat in A&E literally from 7 at night to 7 in the morning, which is entertainment like nothing else. Oh. But there was some other people in the waiting room. There was a group of 3 people and they were deaf and they were signing to each other. And I was at the other side of the waiting room in A&E. And when the nurse was shouting for people, like they were trying to say to her, we're deaf, like we can't hear the names that you're saying. But obviously she couldn't speak sign. Anyway, So across the waiting room, I asked like, oh, what's the name that you're waiting for? And she told us, I think it was David or Stephen or something. Anyway, because I could sign, across the A&E waiting room, the 2 of us were having loads of gossip about all the crack that was going on. Like these people came in and they'd been attacked by a dog, and then there was a woman who was screaming in the hall, so we were like talking in sign language across A&E in the middle of the night. So I can get away with the conversation. I couldn't interpret or anything like that. Yeah. It's a good skill to have. I think
definitely.
It's one they should teach in schools.
100% agree.
Just minimum, even if everyone knew the alphabet,
just even basic,
make the world so much more accessible for deaf people.
Absolutely. So, has AI changed networking, do you think?
AI has changed the way I think people see online content, which really interestingly is encouraging people to go back to face-to-face. So I think people are putting more value on in-person networks than they were previous. Yeah. We all know now that a lot of the content we see, whether it's written or even video content, audio, a lot of it is AI generated.
I find that
we don't trust it.
I find that if someone's put, and it's not always good, but for example, the line, but here's the thing, a LinkedIn post, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, da, da, da. And I'm like, I wonder if ChatGPT wrote that.
ChatGPT probably did that, yeah. And no one trusts it anymore.
Yeah.
So we feel like we can't get a real connect. Not only do we missing out on that human connection, but we're also missing out on authenticity and trust online. And we're not really getting that insight into who that person is. So a lot of people now, and trends are predicting even more so in the next few years, people want to sit down, look you in the eye, shake your hand, which is a very human, like when we shake hands, we get oxytocin, it's our connection chemical, but they want to get that gut feeling for people, which I think for the, on the quest of efficiency that we've been on for the last, however long, the digital adoption, the curve, we've neglected that, but I think people are starting to go back to it, and they will do so even more in the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So you teach networking strategies, and if you could only tell me one, what would be the most important one?
Oh. Well, the most obvious, but the one that people often overlook most is knowing what you want from networking. So setting objectives. People often don't set objectives for networking. They'll just go to events. So that's always the first step. The biggest kind of strategic tip, I think, that I would give is look at the structure of the host of the event. So specifically, is it free? Does it come with membership? What's the price of the ticket? The price and the cost and the accessibility of a network often is an indication on the type of people you're going to find there.
Right.
So people often, when they start networking, they'll go to the free events because they're accessible, non-committal. It's, you're not, there's no money involved, and they're usually relaxed and informal, which is a nice gateway. However, you're not going to find the decision makers of large businesses at free
That's a
coffee
really good
events.
point, yeah.
So often people will invest a lot of time and energy and resource to the free events, get nothing back in return, and then deem networking as unsuccessful. But actually they're just networking in the wrong place.
Right.
Often you need to look at events that come with either criteria to join, cost to join. If there's a price tag associated with a network, the businesses that are there, that they can afford to be there.
Yeah.
That they are confident they're going to exist in another year because they've signed up for an annual membership. Especially events where the ticket, if it's like £200-300 a ticket, the people in the room can afford £200-300 a ticket. Looking at the formation of the event itself is an indication on who you can find.
I never thought of that. And actually, with a membership scenario, for example, you would have to go to every single one, wouldn't you? It's not something you can just dip in, or can you just dip in and out?
No, yeah, it depends. So like in the Northeast, I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Forum, which is a membership network. You don't have to go to all their events. You could if you wanted to, but people are busy, they don't have time. There's other networks that exist, like a BNI, for example, which is Business Network International, where you do pay that annual fee, but you also commit to attend every week. Yeah. So they're slightly different.
Because there's loads of negative comments around BNI. There's always been, because you're forced to sort of bring, I've always said, it's not my type of, I wouldn't, but I kind of get that as well, because, well, then you're going to get something out of it. Yeah. Surely,
there's a balance. I think it depends on the group, the chapter, as they call them, chapters in BNI. It depends on the people that are there. Just because you can afford a seat at the table doesn't instantly qualify you for trust. However, if you have a group that's curated well and they are all a good fit for each other, it can be an unbelievable investment of time and money. Yeah. But then on the flip side, if it's not, then it's really not. So it's finding the right fit. Whereas with membership groups like an Entrepreneurs Forum or, your Chamber of Commerce, for example, you can kind of dip in and out and go as you please. But again, looking at the topic. So Chamber of Commerce, for example, they do a range of events, and you're going to find different people at the different events. Like a coffee and connection kind of network, you're probably going to get a lot of like business development people and, Whereas if it's an event on a topic around anything to do with politics, economic development, that's going to bring out the decision makers and the founders. You're not going to find the BDMs there. So looking at the topic even is going to be an indication on who you can expect to be at those events.
Yeah, so you're not just wasting your time. Because I know people who have spent probably 10 plus years networking and said they've never ever got anything out of it. But yet they still regularly network, and you think, well, clearly they're
getting something. But again, this comes back to objectives though. So networking, it depends on what you want in return. Sometimes it's energy, it's
I was going to say, sometimes
inspiration.
they're potentially still going because they're just like getting out of the office as well, and being surrounded by other business people.
Taking them out of the business for a minute to listen to speakers, so it's knowledge. Obviously there's loads of different benefits to networking, and it comes down to what you want. But what you want's going to change depending on where you are in your journey, in your career. If you're a founder, what you need at the beginning of setting up the business and what you need 10, 20 years in, completely different again. So the objectives are going to shift as the business changes and as you change as an individual, you know.
What about people who don't? Because I've always said that I love how much we change and develop and grow as business owners. And because so I think our journey as people, as having, you know, grown a business and doing what we've done, and the networking and everything that comes along with it, and the highs and the lows, makes us into who, you know, it changes you and becomes part of you. And I always think people who have some people out there who maybe just have a 9-to-5 job or just work for somebody else, they've never experienced this. Like all the people that you meet along the way on this journey, I would never have met these amazing people like you guys. I wouldn't know you, and I would never have had the opportunity. So, what about people who don't run businesses and aren't doing anything? Is there still some? How do they get out and have that experience of networking and building connections?
I think it depends on the job that they have. It depends on the role they have within an organisation. So,
do they have to do it as in within the organisation? As in, can they do it on a personal level?
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than like just joining your local knitting club or
WI,
But then it's hit or miss whether you get a good WI.
It does. I've had some bad experiences, so it depends on the bridge club or whatever. No, they are all forms of networking, just because it doesn't have the word networking on top. Any kind of group, community, going to church, going to, you know, being on the local netball team, they're all developing your networks, they're all developing your personal identity along the way as well. So
I definitely think it's more, it's getting, the groups are getting better, as in you don't have to now go and join just a WI or take up a sport. It used to be either WI or you have to take up a sport or you have to go to church. I remember my mum lived in Rothbury for a few years, and because she's I'm a townie, she's a townie. We live in Rothbury now, but she was getting quite lonely because she'd left her friends in Blythe, and she never quite settled into that rural way of life. And she had said to somebody, one of the people in the street, and she was saying, I just feel a bit lonely, you know, I haven't met. And she was like, you need to go to church. And I remember she was so pissed off. She was just like, bloody church. She's Eastern European, by the way, so like she's quite like, she's got no filters, let's put it that way. But she was just like, bloody church, can you believe that? So I want to meet people, go to bloody church.
Well, historically, that's where community was, historically. Now, like you say though, it's totally different now. Like, my mum's been retired for years and she's got a better social life than I have. And she's part of all kinds of things. I think anything. So naturally, people are drawn to people similar to them.
Yeah.
It's called homophily. It's the idea that birds of a feather.
What's it called?
Homophily.
That's such a good word.
Birds of a feather flock together. So when we've got stuff in common, it's easier to build trust. We also find it easier to build empathy with people that we've got stuff in common with. So when we're born with the ability to empathise with the people of the same age.
I find this really interesting.
People of the same sex. And people that we deem a friend, you know, like friend versus foe. Yeah. It's like when you meet someone from the same city as you know, if you're like traveling and you meet someone from the same location, you deem them as a friend. Yeah. And so we're pre-programmed to empathize with those three groups of people. We have to learn to empathize with others. So men and women have to learn to empathize with each other. They're not naturally programmed to do so. Young people have to learn to empathize with old people and vice versa, and you know, and it takes effort. Yeah. So it's easier to empathize with people that you've got stuff in common with because you already either are pre-programmed or you deem them as a friend versus foe. So we naturally.
Max has made an appearance again.
I love that he's in it.
He's in nearly every episode.
Oh, is he?
Not through choice.
Oh, bless him. He's like, I want to be in it. We naturally are drawn to people similar to ourselves. So finding if you've got a hobby or an interest, you're joining a club, like my mum's Family History Society. She's likes bridge.
Wow.
And, she's done all our family history. So anything like that. Yes. That's also developing your network, because you're networking even though it's not a networking event.
So actually getting kids.
Networking your kids. Yeah, that's a biggie. Yeah.
And when you were saying that, kids being able to empathise with adults.
Yes.
And that's
Massive.
huge.
So if you can network your kids, so this is why a lot of people send their kids to private schools. So the kids get to go to school and through school with other affluent families.
Yeah.
So that they're able to network. If you look, all the politicians went to school together, and they, or they summered in the same location. That kind of stuff. So a lot of more affluent families will send their kids to affluent schools so that they can, as adults, they can network with the other parents, but also so the kids build the networks there with other affluent families. I think it's really important and powerful, and I love this about my little one's school, to put your kids in the position to be able to network with diverse groups of people, different ages, backgrounds, cultures.
That's brilliant. How do we put our kids in a...
Oh, networking your kids.
Yeah. How do we put them in?
I did a blog about this a while ago, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, well, I got invited to talk on it was an online call through an organisation that works with parents all over the world. Anyway, long story short, they had like thousands of people, like parents, come on, and the topic was networking your kids. I think it's important, if you can, look at different clubs that you can have your kids get involved with outside of school.
Yeah.
So they've got different diverse hobbies and interests, but also they get to meet like older kids, younger kids.
Yeah.
They get to meet people. I think as well, there's a lot of pressure in school, when you've only got if they are only friends, that becomes your entire universe as a kid. So if something goes wrong, it's like everything. So if your kids can have that perspective to see that that's not their entire world, and they're able to have different groups of friends as well,
and
that's
when you
quite
put it
nice.
like that,
That's
like,
important.
Definitely, when the way that you've put that, so that's not their entire world, because you're right,
it is their
especially
world.
if you live in a village.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting and joining different things if you can, and it doesn't have to be like expensive stuff. It could just be like a free local club, or like even like the brownies or the scouts or whatever your kid likes, basically. Gives them the chance to try new things, but simultaneously they're meeting different people and new people, and it widens their network and widens their access to diverse perspectives, and that helps them build empathy as well, especially in person stuff.
That's really cool, that, because I've got my Ollie, my 11-year-old, he plays he plays football, he plays basketball, he does loads of, and he's one of those kids that's friends with everybody in school.
Sports is really good for that.
Yes, and I'm wondering now if that's one of the reasons why he is. But my 18-year-old, he didn't play because he wasn't sporty, so he didn't get the opportunity to go and do what all the other lads were. They would all play football at lunchtime. He had a much smaller group, and it took him much longer to be able to sort of speak to adults and do more. And that's made a massive difference.
In sports, if you think, especially team sports, it's an icebreaker straight away because you've got a common purpose and teamwork and all those different things that you have to learn.
And speaking to the coach, which is an adult, which isn't your teacher and it isn't your parent.
Yeah, exactly. Competing with other schools. Weirdly, I train, do networking training for some students at a North East college every year before they have this big event where they meet potential employers.
Right.
And it's always in the different categories. So we'll go in and do like engineering, and do a session with them, the marketing and business ones. And every time the sports kids, by far the most confident, articulate, they're more engaged in the workshop, they will ask questions. Even when they walk in the room, their eye contact, things like that, completely different. The sports kids, you can see, it doesn't have a big impact. I don't know if any research has been done into that, but it would be interesting.
It would be. That's really interesting. What do you find? Do you find the difference? What's the difference between like the IT, for example, and the marketing?
Well, you'd think marketing would be a bit more outgoing.
You would,
and it is. I think obviously IT by default, it's a very individual activity. They do group
the whole
things,
cliche, but what used to be the whole like anyone IT was the lad. It was always a lad sitting in his bedroom, on his
headphones
computer,
on, watching the screen, and because you're not engaging with other humans to do that. But there's a lot of roles that are like that. So alongside running the business, I'm doing my PhD. So I'm 3 years into my PhD researching networking.
How many years is it?
Well, on paper, I'm part-time, so I get 7.
Right.
But I'm hoping to hand in in a year to 18 months. So it'd be like 4. And 4's full time. If it was full time, it would be 4.
I want to come back to that though, because I'm really interested.
I always talk about. But academics, I find quite similar to IT professionals
because they're in their
they're
own...
they're reading, they're often they're lost in their data, and obviously in IT they're lost in their programming, their coding in the matrix, whatever. I'm obviously not an IT person, but they are very similar. There's a lot of similarities for that.
Yeah.
In tech. So I do some activities around like innovation through conversation, and there's an academic paper called The Gradual Construction of Thought by this guy called
such a good name.
Heinrich von Kleist was his name, I know, a legend. And he talks about how when he's got a problem that he can't resolve in his research, he'll go and talk to his sister, and he describes her as not being the sharpest tool in the box. But what he says is that the act of saying out loud his problem forces his brain to organize his thoughts in a way that allows him to see the problem differently and sometimes to solve it himself. And in tech, a lot of people have rubber ducks on their desk. So when they're programming and coding and there's like something that they can't figure out, the idea is that you tell the duck the problem.
Yes.
So talking it out loud forces your brain to organize your thoughts so that you can then spot the gap or the problem or see it differently.
I love that as well, because genuinely just yesterday it was Ellie, I was speaking with Ellie, and she said it's so much easier when we actually get on a call together, because I'll tell her, you know, I want to do this and this, and she says I can spend 20 minutes with you on a Zoom call and get like months worth of stuff out of you, but if you just do this over email or over WhatsApp or whatever, she said,
it's all like,
it's just, I'm just not getting the same amount. Yeah. And I said, it's the act of,
saying
I said, there's
loud.
Something about speaking to you, but it's the saying it out loud, isn't it?
If you're extroverted as well, extroverts think by speaking. So your brain will organize your thoughts as you speak. Introverts tend to think before they speak, so they'll internally organize their thoughts and then articulate. Yeah. This is why people network differently depending on which side of the extrovert introvert scale you sit on, because it's about communication and about energy. So people who are we're all ambiverts, we're all a mixture, but people who are extroverted, they think by speaking, so they think as they speak. So I'll start sentences and I don't know where I'm going till I get there. Whereas introverts think before they speak, so they can come across quietly, which doesn't mean that they've got nothing to say. It just means that they're thinking about it before they say it. So they organize it, then they say it. Whereas I organize it by saying it. And then energy-wise, extroverts get their energy from being around a lot of people. So networking events, naturally, I get lots of energy from them, whereas introverts get their energy from being on their own. So they find those events really tiring when there's a lot of people and they're trying to talk over everyone. So if you think you've got a room full of people all there to network, you've got these extroverts who are talking in order to think, so they're talking out loud and they're all jacked up on energy because they're around a lot of people. And then you've got the introverts who are really tired from being around all the people, and they're also thinking before they speak, so they can't get a word in. So the way that we experience networking event environments is very different depending on where we sit on that scale. So I always say to people, like, once you know who you are and what works for you, find event formats that allow you to shine. So introverts are better off with one-to-one conversations where they actually get time to think before and then share and speak, and they're not as tired as they are with that one to like hundreds of people all chatting. Whereas the extroverts potentially are going to get more from those events. So it depends on where you sit. And then that feeds into the jobs that people pick as well. Obviously, a lot more coders, academics, naturally introverted. They like to be on their own. They get their energy from being on their own. They're able to work in isolation. They get lost in their work. Whereas extroverts, you know, your social media, you know, and because extroverts like to speak and communicate verbally, things like video is a lot easier and that kind of stuff. Whereas introverts often prefer writing rather than speaking. So
I just find that so interesting, because the more I think about it now, you're absolutely right. It's once I start talking and then I realise, that's just made me think of this, that just made me think of that.
And it goes off.
But I don't think of those things, and I've just got a pen and a paper. It doesn't happen.
Well, this is another thing that people get from networking. It's not just about, like we were saying earlier, one of your objectives for networking could be to organize thoughts, to spark ideas. So going out, especially if you're a sole founder, if you work on your own in your business, you don't have a team of people to bounce things off all the time. Going networking gives you those people, and it gives you those opportunities to have those conversations and not only access knowledge of others, but also to organize your own thoughts, talk out ideas, get feedback from people. And that the people that you mentioned earlier that networked for 10 years and don't feel like they got anything, they might be getting, that could be something that they could be getting from it. Yeah. Or that could be an absolutely legitimate reason to go networking in the first place, especially if you're a sole founder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just so interesting. I've loved hearing that. PhD, right?
Yeah.
What the hell does that involve? Because I feel like it's just something I could never ever do.
Anyone can do.
When I had to do my dissertation for uni, no word of a lie, Jason will tell you, he would come into the dining room, because I went back to uni as like a mature student. So I would be in the dining room, in my dissertation with books, etc., and literally just would have my head on the table in tears. I would be like just headbutt the table and cry and just be like, I can't do. I'm so excited about this subject. I'd be like, I'm so excited about it. And I would talk to him about it and be like, boom, boom, boom. We could have an hour-long conversation.
But there's the talking thing again versus the writing thing.
And that's unreal. But then I would go to just gather my thoughts and try. And I'd be like, it's gone. I've just read this from there, and I'd have a conversation with him about it. But then, as soon as I finished that conversation, that it's all gone. It's all just gone out of my head, and now I don't know what to do with it. And now I'm expected to do this, and that's not what I'm good at. And I've just realised I'm covered in dog slobber, literally, and I'm just not good at that. And I'm supposed to do this in order to get my degree, and then you spiral, and it just made it worse and worse. It was horrible, horrible.
How long ago was that?
I think I was 30. I was 30, 31, 30, early 30s when I went back to uni.
Yeah. Do you think if you were to do that now, though, that you would have the same experience? Or do you think that you know yourself differently now?
It would be easier, but I would definitely struggle again. As soon as, I love to read. Like, I love nothing more than reading. Yeah.
See, I hated reading, so you're starting off better than I did going in. Yeah, I love it now, hated it all my life.
But I can still read, be fascinated all the way through this book, and as soon as I put that book down, if you ask me what was in it, I couldn't tell you the name of any characters, I couldn't tell you anything.
While you're in it, you can get it.
It's gone.
Okay.
It's gone forever.
Yeah.
I'd have to read it 17 times to just remember something out of it.
I think I've had to learn, because reading doesn't come, it's not like a natural joy for me like it is for a lot of people. So I spent the majority of my life identifying as someone that just didn't like reading. Doing the act of doing the PhD has completely changed my identity.
Has it?
Oh yeah, it's changed
because
everything.
It's just reading, doesn't it?
It's changed how I see the world. It's changed how I communicate, process. It's changed how I question things.
When you do a PhD, is there somebody there helping you?
So you get a supervisor.
Right.
So part of the application process, I completely started a PhD by accident. It wasn't like I'm going to do a PhD. I would always love to have done it.
Accidentally started a PhD.
We've all done
It's accidentally, I just fell over one day and landed on it. Honestly, it happens. It happens. Durham, I'm at Durham University, and they were a client of mine, and someone that works there, a lovely woman called Charlotte, had seen a call out for a PhD which involved networking ecosystems, and she thought of me, and she sent it to me, and I was like, oh, this is mine. This is, I don't even know what it costs or what it entails, but this is mine. And then it took about a year to do the application process.
What?
So it was like, probably about 10 minutes. It was like, even the process was gangster. I'd never read an academic paper in my life.
Did you tune into your gangster Lobster, though?
Absolutely channeled that Lobster. And like, I got paired with, originally I got paired with a supervisor who ghosted me. I know. Proper ego damage. However, it led to actually the most. I am really blessed in that my supervisor that I've got is such a legend. He is a hero, like, in academia. He's, like, world-renowned in entrepreneurship. He's unreal. But he's also got the same values as me, and he genuinely wants to have a positive impact on the world. And
so that'll have been a game changer.
Oh,
then.
yeah. Like, I've seen a lot of other PhDs who get supervisors. So you need 2 supervisors. It depends on the university and depends on the country that you're in. But here we have 2 supervisors. So you get your main supervisor and then you get second supervisor. Just, it's good to have those different perspectives.
I'd be like, I'll take as many as I'm allowed.
All of them. But in order to apply, you have to have a supervisor. You can't just apply and then get one after.
Yeah.
You have to, it's like, not a sponsor, but someone agreeing to kind of nurture you for the next 4 to 7 years. So yeah, the application itself was rough. But what I thought I was going to research, because I knew nothing about PhD research, what I thought I was going to look into and what I'm actually now looking into is completely different.
How's it changed then?
But that happens apparently. That's just very normal.
What was it and what is it now?
So originally it was like networking ecosystems, so actual networks involving different actors and people and how they interact and stuff like that. Now it's about the moments of interaction between academics and practitioners, business people, and how they interact and what helps or hinders those interactions. And I've, through the last 3 years, discovered a methodology called design science. So usually you've got your quant and you've got your qual, and the quants are the data and the quals are the interviews and the qualitative, like, human experiences of the world, whereas the quants, like in a lab with science or, tech or, very facts and data and figures. Design science is quite unique and it's quite a new methodology, but what I love about it is that it involves lots of different methods. So I've done interviews, I've done something called ethnography, which is where you just watch people, which is freaking class.
I'd love to do
that. You just watch them and then like record what they're doing and how they're interacting and stuff. Yeah.
Can you do that for a job? I think I might change.
Ethnographer. There you go. Yeah. And I've done what's called a systematic literature review. So that's looking at other people's previous research, their results, and then that becomes your data, and you kind of compile lots of different pieces of research and pull out key themes and stuff.
How do you, when you've got, let's just say this one bit of research that you're doing and you've got this shitload of research.
That's the technical term. That's what I call it. Yeah, it's a fucking shit ton. Yeah.
So when you've got a shit ton of research, and I'm assuming some of it's paper, some of it's video, some of it's digital, or is it all?
It's all. I've got some books, but mostly when I did my systematic literature review, it was all online, like journals.
Right.
So
how do you fathom all of that? That's the bit that I struggle. How do you fathom all of that?
There's a software that you can use, so called Web of Science.
Right.
Do you know that there's a second Google Scholar?
No.
There's 2 Googles there. No one told me this. There's regular Google, and then there's Google Scholar, which is just for academic publications. So in order to get published in an academic journal, a piece of research takes like 3 to 5 years to get published. It's like crazy. So the timelines in academia and in business are so different. But by the time they finish
the research, it's probably changed again.
Well, this is one of the
God help anyone who wants to do that.
This is one of the barriers.
AI.
Yeah, this is one of the issues. But it's a big, like, you submit to a journal and then the editors will either like reject it like straight away, or they'll come back with what's called an R&R, which is revise and revisions of, they'll say, look, change this, or we like it, but you need to change. Anyway, it's a long process to get published. So when things are published, the idea is that they're very like rigorous.
Yeah.
And it's like truth and fact, and like that's the whole point. So there's a piece of software called Web of Science that I use for my systematic literature review, and you like search keywords, but you have to record all the searches that you do, and you might start with like 2,000 papers, but then you hone them in based on the years that they were published. So you niche it in. Mine was quite niche because I wasn't looking at the high-level gap that exists between academics and practitioners, because there's a lot of research around that. We know quite a lot about that. One of the differences is the timelines that they have, as well as language and other things. And what I was looking at was I wanted to see other people's observations about how they interact during co-creation projects. So often academics and practitioners will come together to co-create knowledge. So it's not just the academics conducting research on people, they're doing it together. So I wanted to see what was in the existing literature that had been published about what worked and what didn't work in those relationships. And then you read them, and then you start seeing themes as you read, and then the same things start appearing, and then it's like, this keeps coming up, this keeps coming up. And then I ended up with 3 key themes, and those key themes.
And then you're just niching down again with
yeah, and you're
it must
niching
be
in.
really satisfying when you find that.
It's proper interesting. I really enjoyed doing my literature review, and then the observations I'm doing with my ethnography. I'm watching them interact, and I'm seeing in real life what I've seen in the literature, and that really validates what you think, and it brings a whole nother dimension to it. And then I've done some interviews with people as well. But the process of design science, that's just one stage. The next step is to create what's called design principles. Basically, by the end of my research, I will have created an artifact. So mine's going to be a workshop that's actually going to help address the barriers that could potentially come from these projects.
It's really exciting.
It's proper interesting. So a lot of academic research, you create, they create new knowledge. And it's like, this is something we didn't know before. But that's the end of the story. Whereas with design science, that's just the beginning. It's like, right, this is something that we didn't know before. Let's use it to create something that actually has, an impact in the real world, which is what I love. So yeah. And I didn't know any of this existed 3 years ago. So it's like a massive learning curve.
When you were saying, so obviously you were saying you're someone that didn't read. Yeah. Now you have to read. How did you manage that then? That's
been... especially reading academic writing, which is quite dry often. It's not like, and then she walked down the, it's not like that. It's like a lot of words that I've had to Google. But it has made me, because I'm so obsessed with the subject, I'm reading about something that I just love and I'm learning, and then I read it and I find it genuinely exciting. The 3 things that I've pulled out of the research that I'm using to create this, artifact. I've just finished a book yesterday on social identity. So it's how our identities are formed and how malleable they are and how they develop and the different layers that we have to ourselves.
That is fascinating.
Isn't it? And it's how we need social interaction to validate our existence. So how our self develops through the interactions that we have in our social networks, the influence that has on how we see ourselves, our efficacy, our confidence, but also how vulnerable we are and how our self is so vulnerable that we have to often protect it through control, and not bad control, but we're always forever trying to find this balance of controlling ourselves and our emotions whilst simultaneously controlling the interactions that we have to establish ourselves in society. It's proper.
That is
fascinating.
Really interesting. I'm assuming is that an academic book?
So it's a book, but it's written by an academic. But I enjoy books that are written by academics because for me it's the 2 worlds coming together, because it's written for non-academics. And it's not as heavy on the methodologies, whereas academic journals, it's more about how the research was done, whereas the books are more about the results and what that means in the real world. Yeah. So I enjoy that grey literature.
Do you think that this career path that you've chosen has changed you as a person?
100%.
Has it fixed, I'm going to excuse the way I put this, has it fixed anything, for example, that you might have felt as a child or a teenager? Or
it's answered a lot of questions. I can, in hindsight now, look back at a lot of choices and kind of pick apart the career path I chose. I didn't, because it wasn't an intentional choice. It just it did happen. But I can see now the lines and the links and the connections between, childhood experiences, identity. I'm a big fan of personal self-awareness, personal development, and my research reflects what I feel in that before we can have relationships with other people, you need to have a relationship with yourself. If you don't know who you are, then it's impossible to then have that external connection with other people. And that's kind of been a personal journey for me, as well as one that I've created, or I'm like forging a career out of simultaneously. And I don't know if the two parallels are joined or if they're just coincidental in terms of, like I say, it wasn't a conscious decision.
It's almost like you're hearing your stories. Like it's almost like you subconsciously made it happen.
I think when I was younger, I needed a lot of external validation for my existence.
Yeah.
I needed that external approval to justify my existence. And all of which it comes from childhood, all of these things that we have.
So you have kind of fixed your childhood, not trauma. What would you call it though? But you've kind of fixed your childhood trauma.
I've understood it. And then it no longer has control over me.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And once, I think, so like therapy, whatever people need to do, I'm a massive fan of therapy. I think there's only so much self-awareness we can do on our own without having professional support and insights and having someone else feed back again. And to learn. And what I'm obviously learning now through my own research, you can't help but relate to yourself as well. So a lot of the stuff I'm learning, especially about the development of self and, and those external relationships that we have and how we interact with the world and our networks, it all interplays into your own life, and you can't help but see those parallels and those mirrors within the literature. And once you understand it, this is a big one for me, like once you understand why either things stress you out or certain people piss you off when other people don't piss off. It's often, there was a philosopher, I can't remember who it was, that said the object itself isn't offensive, it's our interpretation of the object.
Wow, yeah.
So if something pisses you off and others aren't pissed off by it, there's probably a reason that's to do with you and not them or it. So
that's
what is it?
Why is something offensive to one person and isn't to somebody else?
Yeah. And sometimes, you don't have to unpick everything in life. I think, some things, they just are, and that's part of your core personality. But when there are things that are holding you back or preventing you from making decisions or hindering your connection with others, then often it starts with that self-awareness and personal identity. And that's one of the tattoos, is the chair. Yeah,
is it?
the chair. So, what's his name? I've forgotten his David someone? Anyway, a poet talked about having 3 chairs in his house. The 3 chairs represented community. So there was him and 2 other people, and those 3 chairs were for community. But before he was able to have 3 chairs, he had to have 2. So there was him and 1 other. So before you can have society and a community, you have to be able to have a friendship or an intimate relationship with someone else. But before you can have 2 chairs, you have to start with 1 chair. And it's this idea of, before you can, like I said earlier, have that external relationship connection with someone else, you first need to know who you are and have that self-acceptance, self-awareness, and that then allows you to introduce the 2nd chair and then introduce the 3rd. And this is something that's really an issue in society currently, especially given the digital adoption and how that's impacting our ability to empathize. People aren't spending time with their own thoughts. They're forever entertained with their screens, their phones. Even when they're in the car, they're listening to music. We're constantly bombarded with information and entertainment. People are trying to sell us stuff all the time, from literally the moment you wake up. So people don't process and get to know themselves and who they are. So they really struggle to then articulate who they are and communicate that effectively. And therefore that impacts their external relationships with others as well. And if you don't know and understand yourself, then it's really difficult to understand other people.
It's just cut. Shall we just leave it at that? That was really beautifully told.
Oh, good.
Honestly.
Good. Oh, good. I love it. It's proper interesting.
That's a wrap.